Good morning. Good morning. It is 2:45 a.m. and I'm on my way to the gym right now. So, like, my morning ritual, and for as long as I can remember, 2 years, 3 years, before I leave out the house, I wake up, and when I get ready and I'm ready to go, I go room to room and I give everybody a kiss. And sometimes I'll pray. Sometimes I'll pray over them. And probably within the last, I want to say, maybe 8 months, I wake Silas up so he can go use the restroom. And, that's just kind of been what I've been doing. And I don't know, I was proud of him anytime he doesn't have an accident. And I hope I'm not saying too much about my son, because that's my son and I'm the only one that can say something about him, because God forbid somebody else say something about him, then we're going to have a huge issue. But I guess I can say it because I made him. So, I wake him up to make sure he didn't have any issues. And as we're walking to the bathroom, I say, man, I'm so proud of you. You didn't wet the bed. Good job. And he hears me. Because sometimes when we're driving to school, he'll say, I heard you say you're proud of me. Even though he's half asleep, he hears me. But today, I caught a glimpse of him as I was coming back down the hall, and he was leaving the restroom to go back to his room. I caught a glimpse of him. I looked at him. I looked at his, I'm looking at the back of him as he's walking away. And it dawned on me. It really dawned on me. In some way, some form or fashion, it may have resonated with me, but what I felt resonated with me different, not the same. And I'm gonna try to correlate these two things together. But what resonated with me was, we got some great kids. And trust me, I think they're trying to give me a heart attack. Because some of the things that Silas does is like, are you thinking? Some of the things that Sanaya does has me like, girl, are you possessed? Some of the things that Malachi does has me thinking, are you thinking? But as I was looking at the back of Silas walking away, going back to his room, I said, we got some great kids. We got some really great kids. And at that moment, nothing else was of any importance than just being in that moment at that time, reflecting on that gift. And the odd thing is, when I think about my order of priorities, they're up there, but do I give them the time and attention that shows them that they're up there? And I would say not all the time. Then I started thinking about what gets my time and attention. And the truth of the matter is, for me, everything gets 70% of me. Well, you're probably thinking, well, how there's only 100%. How do you split yourself into 75 different ways? And I'm saying 70% of my capabilities is what each thing gets from me at a given time. Because 30% of me is thinking about something else versus being all in on that. And it got me to thinking, money can't be as big of a priority as we make it out to be. And I hear a lot of people talking about the money they don't have. I hear a lot of people talking about the money they don't have. But I do not hear nearly enough people talking about how they made it anyways. Like, how did it work out anyways? You didn't have the money, but how did it work out anyways? So then it brought me to the next thought, which was when Moses struck the rock and water flowed. And it got me to thinking, that's how my life works when there's a financial issue. There, an overflow comes out of the most unknown places. Now I know people might be thinking, well, what is he talking about? What rock? But really think about it. I mean, has there been not just one, maybe 1,000, if you lived any time on earth, has there been a lot of situations where it worked out? I mean, it might not have worked out right then and there. It might have took a couple years. It might have took a couple months, depending on the size of it, depending on the magnitude of it, depending on what was involved. But didn't it work out? I mean, didn't it come full circle? And let me go ahead and get in here and say this. If it didn't, was it because you decided you didn't want to change? I write my family these notes all the time, especially when I'm encouraged to. I don't just write them for any reasons. And this one says that we're all born with favor. I said, but we pursue the things of the flesh. And when we do that, we move further and further away from the favor that is ours. The same way when we ignore what God is telling us to do, we move further and further away from being able to hear that voice. That very subtle voice. But I looked at my son and I couldn't help but really look and say, wow. Like, we got some great kids. Like, maybe I'm supposed to say that. Don't know if I'll say it to him. But we got some great kids. Right? And what bigger gift than the gift of having the gift of greatness in the form of another human being right next to you? There's nothing that tops it. There's a lot of things that the flesh would desire first. But the flesh is so, even relative to time, the flesh is only going to live what? maybe 80 years, maybe 100 years. In terms of time, well, that's not even a grain of sand on one of the biggest beaches in one of the biggest deserts. So when you start talking about what the flesh wants, you're talking about something that's very short-lived. Something very, it really in its infant stage. I mean, if you really want to think about it, we're constantly growing, constantly evolving. We never hit an end point. And then we die. The flesh dies. So when you think in terms of what you desire, are you taking into consideration the thing that is short term? Or are you taking into consideration the thing that is everlasting? Because if you start to see what God wants you to see, which is the power of what you have, what you've been given, over the power of what you don't have, then you'll see that there's more life in seeing the value of how rich you are. And I mean, you don't have to necessarily have kids to have that richness. You can have parents. You can have friends. But I think the power of another individual to bless your life far surpasses what the body is looking for in terms of comfort. My opinion. Strictly my opinion. But if you ever take some time to really sit there and think about it, identify the things that really make you happy, then let me know if any of them are really attached to money.